Okay, now that I've finished my tubes, I have started to go ahead and add some value to my artwork. You can see that I chose a red Sharpie instead of a black Sharpie. That kind of limited my color options when I went in and started shading a little bit. I didn't have a black Sharpie here at home, so I just used what I had. But what I did was I looked up on the color wheel and I chose a color to shade in my value that was the complementary color of the Sharpie that I used. So for me, I used a red Sharpie. The complementary color of red is the color directly across the color wheel, which is green. So what I did was I started shading. You can see here, and I wanted to show you after I started shading a little bit, that my darkest value is on the outside edge of both or all of my sections. And then there's a lighter shading that goes towards the middle on all of my sections. And then inside the very middle of each of my sections all the way up is white. You can do it a lighter shading if you want to, but I chose mine just to be white, so I left that white strip. You can see how it goes all the way up my tube and it kind of flows all the way to the top, okay? That just kind of gives me a visual as I go where I need to stop my sections. And I'll explain that here when I'm shading the lower part of my tube. My darkest value is going to stop right about here. So I can go in and make a really light line if I want to. I could even go and do that all the way down my paper, a very, very light line because I don't want to have to erase. I could do that if it makes it easier for you to kind of have a visual of where to stop. Then you can go in and do that. And then I'm going to go in and shade that. That's my darkest value. So I want to shade that in really dark and make that color nice and rich. I can go back here and shade it in a little bit more if I need to. Then you can see there's kind of an imaginary line again right here, and that's my next darkest value. And then this part's going to be white in here. So I can go ahead and add those in too. And I'm going to put a lot less pressure on my pencil. I like to kind of go in and shade a little bit, and then if I need to come in and get darker, I'll add a little bit more pressure on my pencil. I would rather go a little bit too light at first and then go darker than the opposite, just because I don't really like to go back and have to erase. So that's just a helpful tip for you when you're going and doing your coloring. Then I can come on the other side, and here I'm going to imitate this darkest value because I have my little line very light line that I drew. And then I'm going to shade right here, and I'm going to leave the middle of it white. And I'm going to continue this all the way down. Now, what you're going to do is with the rest of the piece, you're going to do the exact same thing. You can choose different colors if you want to. It does help to look up at the color wheel and find some of the colors complements because they just look good together. And if you just like two colors next to each other, you can be creative and do that also. I'm going to draw this line in here too, just so I know where to stop, just to give me a visual. Remember, light pencil marks are always recommended when you're drawing or shading anything. And I'm just going to keep going and doing this all the way until my whole page is filled.